Good. Welcome, friends. We're here, another Let's Talk series about things that happen in our community across our campus with our students. We want to educate people. We want to let people know what services, resources are out in our community. And today I've got three awesome folks with me from Promise Place. They're going to share their knowledge, experience, and their personal take on some very serious topics. We're going to kind of cross into different things, domestic violence, rape, human trafficking, and I'm gonna be very educated during this process too. So however you guys want to start, Becca, if you want to start, and then introduce the next person, and then the next person will find out who you are, and then we'll get started.
Okay. My name is Rebecca Cush, and I work at Promise Place. I am one of their rape prevention and violence prevention educators here, and I also do victim support specialist here.
I'll go next. My name is Sarah Mendoza. I work here at Promise Place as well. I'm a victim support specialist, and I will be assisting Becca with RPE. Today, I will be discussing domestic violence and relationships.
My turn? My name is Hayley Rhodes. I was on the last conversation we had, so I might look a little familiar. I am an intern for Promise Place. I'm an undergrad student at ECU and soon to be graduate once I complete my internship here. And then I'll be helping support the conversation because I've been working with Becca and Sarah on the RPE program. And so we've been researching and they've been teaching me all about the program. So I'm excited to talk more about it.
Awesome. And again, ladies, thanks for taking time out of your day to join us and share this information with us. So, kind of as we've talked, help us understand in the community of Craven County and surrounding counties, how are these issues touching, our students, but also our residents as you work with them in the community?
Well, we have noticed like an increase in some sexual assaults over the past year during quarantine and everything like that. This is just information we know because we work with the crisis line and we also go out for call outs for sexual assaults. So that is something that a lot of people may not be aware of, that there is an increase in sexual assaults.
Or COVID had a little something to do with that, as everyone's forced to be home, and a lot of problems have been arising because of COVID. So I'm sure it's not a coincidence that sexual assault cases and domestic violence cases are arising during this time.
And as you said, we got people who are in close quarters more frequently than maybe they're used to. But then, of course, just the stress, right? Maybe they're together more because they've lost a job or not working as much. They're not getting as much hours on the job. So you got financial stress. You've got kids running around the house because they're not in school. Are these some of the precipitating factors that lead to sexual assault and violence of other kinds? And with that, this is a layered question. Sorry, just kind of one leads to another. But can you kind of really discuss what differentiates sexual assault from other types of domestic violence?
So sexual assault is any type of force or coerced sexual contact or behavior that happens without consent. It can include rape, attempted rape, sexual coercion. I think the big difference really is, because sometimes when you say domestic violence, it's okay, you think relationships, and it's people who are in a relationship which led to sexual violence or violence within that relationship. But sexual assault is more so just any act or behavior related to sexual behavior that's not consented. And so that includes rape, all of that. So I know
feel like
Sarah.
Yes, sorry, sexual assault,
You're
I
good.
feel like it's a form of domestic violence.
Mhm.
Um, the NCCOS, their definition of domestic violence would be domestic violence is the willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and or other abusive behavior as part of a systematic pattern of power and control over someone else.
Yeah, and sexual assault isn't totally targeting acts of sex. It could also just be abuse. It could be incest, any type of unwanted touching,
Mhm.
any type of sexual contact that is not consented falls under the definition of sexual assault and
Yeah.
domestic abuse.
And then we got, I know we wanted to touch a little bit on human trafficking, which also can fall into sexual assault and domestic violence. I mean, a lot of people aren't familiar with human and sex trafficking, but you know, it is in our communities. In fact, North Carolina is number 9 out of all 50 states to for human trafficking reports.
Yeah, that number I was actually shocked by too when I found that out.
Same, I did not know that before the research.
Yeah, it was very alarming.
So can you tell us what exactly what falls under the umbrella of human trafficking? What does that mean?
Okay, so like human trafficking is a commercial sex act induced forcefully by exploiting women, men, and children by coercion. Some examples of sex trafficking include prostitution, pornography, stripping, and sometimes even like erotic massages is also under human sex trafficking. Basically, anybody that's forced to do something for somebody to like make money off of, but they're being forced into it by they're being threatened. You know, they threaten the person, they'll threaten their family, they alienate, the sex trafficker will alienate the victim from their family or anybody they're close with. So they're basically working for somebody and they're doing sexual favors or any kind of sexual acts on people that they are not consenting to, and they're being paid for it, but they don't get the money. I mean, that someone else is getting the money and exploiting them to this.
Is there a certain population of folks that fall into that category?
Yes.
And population, let's talk about social, cultural, age, that kind of thing.
Yes. So the most common age for someone to be human trafficked, and it's mostly women. Statistically, men can be human trafficked too, but it's mostly women statistically that are human and sex trafficked, and usually it falls between the ages of 19 and 27 years old. And there is also human trafficking, sex trafficking for children too. It's not as common, but it happens as well. So that's why this is like the college students. You know, a lot of the college students, they don't know much about sex trafficking and they don't know the warning signs of it, and they're in that age group. Especially the women are in that age group to be sex trafficked.
I feel like a lot of people don't realize how common it is here.
Because it's also very hard to identify. So, and also included in the people who are vulnerable communities, it's not just women, like Becca said, it's the youth, it's people of color, it's a lot of LGBTQ community members, immigrants, homeless individuals, children in the foster care, and people with past history of trauma. So it's a wide scope of people that can fall victim to human trafficking. So that's why it's important to know how to identify it, because it's actually not very easy if you're not actually paying attention. And I know there's a really great website that it's more detailed. It's
I do know that a lot of times with sex trafficking, the perpetrator will come in and they'll want to have a relationship with the woman. And they'll come in and they're initially coming off as loving and kind and supportive, or they'll even give, people like these elaborate gifts, and they gain their trust. And then once they gain their trust, then and as the relationship progresses, the human trafficker will then find will start to be more. You'll find them to be more demanding and alienate you from your family. Then they'll start having these controlling tactics with the women or the men, where they will become physical abuse, mental abuse, some of the stuff that they do too. So it kind of comes off hidden at first. You may not know at first that you're being sex trafficked. You'll meet a guy and you're in a relationship with him. Everything's fine. He's loving, he's caring. And then next thing you know, you're finding yourself in a situation where you're being human trafficked. So these are like some of the signs. This is what we want to educate the community on, is some of the signs. If you may know somebody, or for yourself, you might meet somebody, everything seems right and great, and all of a sudden it's not.
And that's also why the RPE program is so great, because this touches on the attitudes and the behavior associated with dating abuse and violence. And so I think incorporating a prevention intervention as part of kind of controlling and minimizing effects of or rates of domestic violence, human trafficking, it plays a significant role in it, because it's better to prevent abuse than it is to treat it, in my eyes. So this program is really great, because Rebecca can speak more on it, because she's actually taught these classes, but it's about 6 to 10 sessions, and you learn you understand boundaries, communication, emotional regulation. You learn what a healthy relationship looks like, and it's taught in a way that adolescents can understand, because, for example, coercion, you don't really know what that looks like, and when you're as a young person, you would think like, oh, you're being forced into something, but it doesn't always look and is obvious that it's being forced. Coercion could simply be being asked several times to do something that you don't want to do. So I think that's why this program is really good. And I'm glad it's offered in New Bern, North Carolina, because that's a small town. A lot of small towns don't have these kind of resources. So I think it's a good thing to take advantage of too, and something that should be more implemented into school systems, because that's a great audience to target. And
the program, the Safe Dates program, is great. It's basically teaching teenagers what healthy relationships look like and what they're supposed to be like, other than the negative parts of it, how to identify it, how to get out of a bad relationship, what to do if you are being physically abused or mentally abused. We cover a bunch of different topics. We even talk about like emotion regulations. So like, instead of getting angry at your partner because they didn't do something, we teach them like, you're not really angry, you might be upset, and how you're not, and not to take it out on the person you're in a relationship with,
and how to channel that anger and not in a physical way.
And how to identify any kind of a bad part of a relationship, because a lot of times teenagers and young adults, they don't understand. If a guy is very jealous, a girl may think that's cute to her, but it's more like they're starting to control them, and then it could get out of control, where they alienate you from your family and from your friends, and they only want you around all the time. That's not a healthy relationship. And that's one of the things we teach in the Safe Dates class.
Yeah. So hopefully with RPE, hopefully it would bring the statistics of domestic violence down, where currently they stand in 1 out of 4 women fall victim to domestic violence in relationships, and 1 out of 10 men. And I feel like men, a lot of times, they kind of feel like, oh, that can't happen to me, like it's not it doesn't happen to men, but it does. And domestic violence takes various forms. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be sexual, psychological, um, and the target range from that group is 18 to 24-year-olds are most commonly abused by their intimate partners.
And sometimes when you're younger and you grow up in a certain environment, you're under the impression that it's almost normal to accept abuse or to accept physical abuse. Like it just becomes a normal part of your life. So it's good to teach adolescents at a young age, because that they're a better opportunity to unlearn these behaviors, and so that they can change, so they're not bringing this into adulthood where they can actually get in serious trouble and have social or criminal justice repercussions. So that's why it's good to target adolescents, because they're at a better opportunity to learn and change the behavior before it gets bad.
And we've seen that here, I feel like, where we have had situations where people come in to receive therapy because the mom was a victim of domestic violence in a relationship, and the child witnessed the whole thing. So now the child is traumatized by everything, and living in constant fear because they witnessed this, fight or this domestic violence situation go down. So here at Promise Place, we offer therapy services for anybody that's a victim of trauma. So we do see a lot of people come in with that trauma, that just, they live in constant fear, and they just need someone to talk to because they just want to get over it and stop living in fear.
And Promise Place also does advocacy. So this consists of court advocacy and assistance. So advocates can go with the client, say, to court if they need assistance with that, or housing support, and they can refer them to different services in town. And another really good service that is offered in New Bern is the Coastal Women's Shelter on Glenburnie. And this is a safe house. They have a safe house. They have violence support groups. They also have advocacy. They have a New Beginnings program, which
we actually work hand in hand with them.
Yeah. So advocates here they can refer clients to the Coastal Women's Shelter.
Yes, so we send them referrals, they send us referrals. We have a crisis line here at Promise Place. It's 24/7. So we have received calls where they are in a domestic violence situation, and in that case, we would refer them to the Coastal Women's Shelter, and then they take it from there. They assist in things such as obtaining restricted orders, and they assist with, like she said, shelters, protection orders, and they also have a 24/7 hotline that you can call. They have advocates on staff, and then if they have sexual cases, they refer them to us.
So I'm your captive audience, right? I'm the student in the classroom. So I'm going to check for understanding. So I saw some patterns as you all were talking articulately and really laying it out there. So I just want to see if I've captured some of the patterns correctly. So whether it's domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, we're really looking at that age range from upper end adolescence through college years into late 20s, right? That seems to be
correct.
That most prevalent age group. We're talking about mainly women. We're talking about relationships that start with what could be manipulative men who are promising, their knight in shining armor, and they're promising everything, and they're being so gentle and loving and kind. And then the warning signs is when that behavior starts to change, when that behavior becomes perhaps violent, very manipulative, very controlling, trying to take these women away from their support systems, to isolate them from their support systems. And then, they get into this negative path, right? What kind of keeps, individuals stuck for a while? Before you've mentioned, a lot of the programs that you have in Coastal Women's Shelter. What keeps women, particularly, as we've kind of put that out there, from staying in the situation perhaps longer? What kinds of dynamics make it difficult for them to reach out for change?
I would say education, getting out into the community and educating on the signs of everything. A lot like one of the girls was saying, like, if you're brought up, everybody's brought up differently. So what might seem normal to one person may be normal to another person. So that's why you got to get out there and educate people and, discuss with them and talk to them. Let them know what is normal, what is not normal, what is a healthy relationship, what is not a healthy relationship.
And I also wanted to add that I think fear is a huge factor why victims don't leave abusive relationships or just not healthy relationships. Oftentimes abusers, like, they threaten and they're scared that they may kill them or take their children, or
they're good manipulators.
Yeah, exactly. So they'll scare someone into staying with them. They'll say anything. So I think fear is a huge motivator in staying. And then also lack of resources. So money,
lack of resources is a good one.
Community resources, personal resources, such as like skills to support oneself. They don't have a social support. So all of those play a huge factor in victims leaving. And I think it's easy for people to blame victims as like, because they didn't leave the situation, but sometimes you're not necessarily given an option to leave.
That's right.
It's not easy.
And I feel like it's very important to remember not to place, like Hayley said, blame on the victim. Don't ask, well, why did she just leave? Well, why did she leave sooner? I feel like lots of times victims might feel like, stigmatized. So a lot of times they're even scared to speak up and come and speak up about it because they fear like people might judge them. They might ask all these questions. Why do you stay? And I feel like it's just a lot of kind of things that you don't know until you're really in that situation.
Exactly.
So it's very important not to judge.
And some women and men, that are in a domestic violence relationship, getting out of it, like Sarah was saying, it's just not easy. So you can't just blame the victim, say, why haven't you left the guy yet? A lot of times the victim is financially dependent on the perpetrator, like they may be a stay-at-home mom and don't have any, further education. And if they leave, they have nothing to go with. So, that's also another reason why women don't leave, domestic violence.
And that's why also Promise Place and the Coastal Women's Shelter is really good resource to put out there and to broadcast, because this can honestly save a lot of women or men, honestly. I feel bad for only including women as victims, but just because it's statistically more women being in these type of situations, men can be victims too. And that in itself is a barrier too, because a lot of men feel like are embarrassed to come forward after being abused, sexually abused, or that since they're a man that they can't be coerced into having sex. So there's a lot of stigma around it as well.
Yeah, when we were doing, me and Nicole, we had done a couple safe dates classes at the Methodist Home for Boys here in New Bern. And when we would talk about domestic violence with them as women, beating on a man, they were shocked. They're like, that doesn't happen. No woman's going to ever like touch me. And it's like, no, that does go on. And men are less likely to report it because, of the social norms. Like, they're a man, they're embarrassed. They can't go and say, my girlfriend's beating me up or my wife is beating me up.
Or they would feel judged if they did.
Yeah, so we we talk about that in our program as well, that does go on and what to do, how to identify it.
And one of the things you guys also talked about was gender norms, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the other layer that I could see talking about also is that we know that when victims, individuals, male or female, are exposed to this type of abuse and stress, and when they're isolated from their support systems, and probably, a mixture of genetics that come from the family as well. But, we talk about depression and anxiety, right? So layers of problems and complications when you're trying to break out of an abusive situation, in that, when you're depressed, you just don't have the energy to really fight against whatever's going on.
That's right.
Your self-esteem has, probably been crushed. And then, you just you have that sense of hopelessness that depression brings with it as well. So
and it's like an endless cycle. And then you're constantly stuck in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And when your self-esteem is being beaten and you might not think you're good enough, like you think you deserve that kind of treatment. And that's definitely not the case, but some people are manipulated into believing that.
And then when you have significant experiences of abuse and trauma, of course, now we talk about post-traumatic stress disorder.
That's right.
So we really holistically, when we treat the individual, it's about providing the education, right? And that the educational part, psychoeducation, and then having those positive support systems that your program provides, and then the mental health side of it, really treating depression, anxiety, and other various types of that too. So there's a lot. That's why it's difficult, right? To get
That's right.
Because you're treating a lot of different things.
And everybody's got a different story as well, everybody's experience is different, everybody's story is different. So, I mean, I know us here at Promise Place, we see all different kinds of trauma here. And everybody's got their own story. Everybody's different.
Here during the pandemic, we've actually noticed a spike in call-out calls to the hospital because when there's a sexual assault reported to the hospital, we get a call. And so we go out there, we assist the victim with the SANE kit if they if they want us to stick around. If not, then we leave. But if they want our assistance, we let them know of our services. We offer it to them. We make sure that they have a safe environment to go back to. If not, for a victim of a sexual assault, we find them a safe shelter that they could go to in the meantime. But we have noticed a spike in calls. We've had a lot of call outs here lately to the hospital. So that's very, alarming. And we want to just assume that the cause of that is because of COVID. That's all we can think about. But we're not sure if it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, we don't know that for certain. It's just that we have, like Sarah said, we have had a increase in call outs on our crisis line and going down to the hospital with sexual assault victims. And we also, a lot of times whenever a victim is sexually assaulted, they don't know all the laws and stuff like that. Where we can go in there as their advocate and we can, let them know what the laws are. Like, a lot of women think that they have to report the sexual assault. They don't have to. We're very neutral here. We don't encourage anybody to report it. We also don't encourage them not to report it, but we basically take their hand and we guide them through the process. If they decide to report it, we will go with them to court. We will go with them if they want to while they file the report and do the interview with the police, we're there with them.
Advocates are good about providing options and the process and what those options would look like should they choose that option. So I think that's why I think advocates are so good, because sometimes you just need somebody to hold your hand through stuff that you don't necessarily understand. And it's not like there's a rule book on how to do some of these, deal with these processes or experiences in life. So I think it's really good to have somebody who is neutral and who will also give you the space to decide and make your own decisions on what you want to do. But just having somebody there to let you know your options on, like, in case you do change your mind or want to do something about it.
Yeah, because I mean, we do see, you know, sometimes you get down to the hospital and the victim has been through so much already, and they're at the hospital, and then, you know, you have to explain to them, like, if you want to report it, you know, they prefer you to have a sexual assault kit done where they can go in and pull out all the stuff for forensics and stuff. And that's a very lengthy exam. It can be 3 hours long. So a lot of times the last thing the woman wants is to go through this exam after she was already sexually assaulted. So, but a lot of women don't know that they don't have to do that. That's their choice. So we're there with them, let them know, like, hey, if you don't want to do it today, you have 5 days and you can come back. You know, obviously the longer you wait, the less evidence you're going to get. But if you don't want to do it now, if you're tired, you've already been through a lot, you know, go home, call me tomorrow, and I will meet you back down at the hospital and I will sit through the kit with you.
We inform them of their victim rights, because a lot of them don't know that as victims, they have rights. They have rights to compensations if they lost out because of what they went through. They are they have, you know, they can get their compensation back. They have lots of rights that a lot of these victims aren't aware of. So our advocates, is their job to educate them and make sure that they are okay, that they don't have to take on any extra burden dealing with this. So like Hayley said, our advocates just kind of like grab their hand and just lead them through the process just to make it easier for them.
Now, does that process actually include, so the advocate tells them their legal rights and everything, does that process actually include putting them in the office of lawyers, of legal assistants, or?
We cannot legally do that. We can give them
Resources.
resources, yes.
Refer them to a
Usually what
lawyer.
we would do is maybe give them options, like, hey, you know, here's 3 resources that you could choose from. And then they go and we legally can't like send them to
You
an
can't give them
attorney.
legal advice.
Yes, but
Right.
we could get them options to choose from, and then there they can choose, and then they, you know, the attorney would carry it from there. And then if they would like us to assist them, as in like their court dates, we will be there with them. If they need help with interviewing with police, we can sit in there with them, make sure they're comfortable with all the questions being asked, and we could step in, you know, if they don't feel comfortable and they just kind of want to end the interview. So we're just kind of there to make sure that the victim is comfortable with what they're doing.
So I'm really going to assume the role of somebody who's a victim, right? And I'm going to kind of walk in their shoes. I'm going to say, I've reached out to you, and you're talking to me about all these things, and I tell you, you know, hey, look, I can't afford a lawyer. I don't have any money. How am I going to go see a lawyer? So I'm connecting the dots of the community here. So I'm assuming that you know of law firms, of lawyers who, I don't know if it's pro bono, I don't know if it's sliding fee scale, but who actually specialize in this form of law and make it affordable for your clients.
Yes, we do. We do have resources. We use legal aid here in Craven, and that's one of the resources we have where we can get them appointed to a lawyer, either one that they can afford or one that can work pro bono for them.
I also like to think as advocates as a middleman. So if a victim or client comes to an advocate, the advocate acts as a middleman, as in locating resources and services in local community that the client could need based on their circumstances. So these resources aren't necessarily tied to or limited to just court related issues. It's also employability services in case, and if they're in need of a job, housing services, education services, food assistance, medical expense resources, community partner assistance and information. So it's a whole broad array of help that advocate to do. So it's not just.
And you have to offer that, right? Because if you're telling someone, look, you don't have to live like this, you can choose not to live in this relationship, and they're going to say, what about money? What about insurance? What about housing? You're going to throw all these things as to why they have to stay in that situation. And what you're saying is, wait, no, we have resources. We can help connect you with a job. We can help connect you with food and resources. We can help connect you with legal assistance. So you're removing all the barriers and obstacles that
That's right.
people would say, I'm stuck. I can't get out of it.
That's right.
And basically we want to say you're not stuck. You have options, because sometimes victims just feel like they don't have no other way. There's nothing better out there. There's not a way to get out unstuck. But like you said, Promise Place and a bunch of other nonprofits in general, their job is to find you resources, or an array of resources, so you don't feel stuck, because they understand that it's not just one layer. It's like you said, it's a million different layers that all tie in together. So yeah,
so let me ask you this question as we continue to connect the dots of our community, because I really enjoy hearing that the hospital reaches out to you. So here's what I know, right? We as Craven Community College, we throw referrals to you guys, obviously, right? So
That's right.
Folks, and the hospital refers folks. The coastal shelter will refer folks. Let me ask you this question. We know that RHA, has a mobile crisis unit in the services. Do they ever, when they go out and do a mobile crisis assessment, do they ever make referrals to you off of those assessments?
Yes, they do. We actually work with mobile crisis, integrated RHA. We have to sometimes use mobile crisis ourselves if we get a phone call on the crisis line, because we don't go to people's houses where mobile crisis will. So there's been times where we've actually had to call mobile crisis for the person that was calling our crisis phone, and vice versa. They've called us to send us referrals for therapy services and advocacy services.
So as you got to be teammates with your community.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's what we're all trying to do, is instead of working in silos and saying, well, we do this here and that's all we do. It's like, no, we have to be, we have to intersect with each other, right? We have to
that's right.
know how we can use each other and pass, a victim or a client or a student, whatever category they're falling under, a human being, an individual who is in dire need of assistance, who needs support to change their lives. We all intersect and we work together to make that possible. And so those who are listening, I hope this is so encouraging, because it really is steps, right? You have to first identify, I'm in a problem, I'm in a mess, right? And then I've got to have the courage to seek help and talk to somebody. And then when they do that, then that leads to, all these other options and resources that are out there, but they need that ongoing encouragement to continue to push forward for change in their lives. And, it's obviously risky to stay in a bad situation, but we have to acknowledge that it's risky change, period. Coming out of, even though it's a very dysfunctional comfort zone, it's what we know. We think this is the best that I can do. But there really is a lot out there, and that's why I'm so thankful that you guys come on and share your information, and we connect the dots in the community of all the services that are out there, because really when you start to think about it, there's no reason why somebody, if they want help, if they want change, that they can't have it. I mean,
that's right. And we just want to let everyone know that nothing is impossible. We're here to help you. Also, everything is anonymous here. You can come to us. You know, everything's we have a confidentiality, you know, thing here, so we don't talk about it to anybody. There's a lot of women who are being abused are scared to reach out in fear of being abused more. So like our crisis phone, it is anonymous. If somebody wants to call the crisis phone because they feel that maybe their boyfriend is being abusive and they don't know if it's normal or not, they can call us and we can talk to them, you know, and try to guide them through what's right and what's not right.
I also want to add in there that at this time, and I'm pretty sure that from now on, all of our services we offer them over the phone, over telehealth as well. So just like this, if transportation is an issue for anyone, you know, we kind of try to eliminate that, and hopefully this helps us reach a lot more other people.
And services aren't completely terminated, because I know therapy sessions are being held virtually as well, but I mean,
And
it's better than no therapy sessions whatsoever. So
yes, and it's really important, I think, to add that all of our services are free of charge. So we don't charge for advocacy services, we don't charge for therapy services. We're nonprofit, so it's at no cost to you.
And we have a lot of great people that work here as well. We're all here for the cause, you know, so got a bunch of good people here that are out here for the victim, hold their hand, make their new life possible. Let them know that, you know, the sun's going to come up tomorrow and, you know, everything's going to be okay. And we're going to be here by their side.
Yeah, so I told you time would fly when we do this. I mean, you know, it's like, oh, we're already over 40 minutes in. And it's like, oh, you know, it's amazing. But that's 40 minutes of awesome information, because, you know, it really is about removing the obstacles for people, you know, when they are trying to get help and improve not only their own lives, but as we've said, many have children and they're trying to improve the lives of the children, so the children don't have to continue to go that. And then do that generational thing, right? Where the cycle repeats itself over and over until we break the cycle. And so what you do certainly is huge for helping folks break those cycles and find new, healthier, whole ways of living in really functional and healthy relationships. So appreciate what you do. Is there anything else maybe that you feel like you need information to get out there, or wrapping up certain points? But it's been awesome.
If we could just give you some phone numbers, we'd like to just, you know, share our crisis line with everybody. If you are in Eastern North Carolina, please reach out to us. It's a 24/7 crisis phone. And that phone number is 252-635-7096.
Awesome. And we always tell folks to go to our website, you know, just get on Craven Community College's website, put in counseling services. We've got Promise Places information up there. We got the women's shelter. We've got RHA integrated. We've got, you know, everything that is on our website, hotlines and this and that of resources that are out there. And again, I just appreciate Becca, Sarah, Hayley, your time, your experience, and the care, compassion, and energy you bring to the field. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for giving us a platform to tell our services and everything. So thank you for having us.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, hey, look, we'll be doing more things, and we'll talk to you in the future.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.